My name is Delaney Wren, and I'm 34 years old, the youngest daughter of the Wren real estate dynasty, though you wouldn't know it by the way they treat me. I wasn't the Ivy League golden child, the one with the Wall Street resume or political marriage. I was the quiet one, the one who designed spaces, not empires. While my siblings fought for board seats and my mother obsessed over legacy, I stayed out of the spotlight, content with blueprints and breathing room. Still, deep down, I always knew I didn't belong, not really, not in their world of cold champagne smiles and generational secrets. But what no one knew, not even my husband, was that my father left me something they all wanted, and someone was willing to fake my signature to get it. The day after my wedding, I found out I'd just been robbed, and it wasn't by a stranger. The email came at 6:02 a.m. Subject line, Transfer Confirmation, Wren Holdings Unit 3B. I stared at it for a second, still half asleep. Then I sat up. There shouldn't be any transfer. Not without my signature. And certainly not without my attorney. The PDF attachment opened to a 3-page confirmation from Stallworth and Ledger Title Agency, stamped and sealed. At the bottom there it was, a scrawl mimicking my handwriting, above the words, Delaney J. Wren-Radnor. No. I pulled the comforter off me and stepped onto the cold hardwood. Downstairs, I could already hear Elias clinking dishes in the kitchen. Coffee grinder. The sound of a man settling into his first full day as a husband. I stepped into the hallway, barefoot, phone still shaking in my hand. "Hey, Dee," he said casually, not looking up. "Cream's gone bad. You want oat?" "Elias," I said flatly. "Why is my name on a transfer document for Unit 3B? He froze mid-pour, turned slowly. 3B, he repeated. The penthouse on 18th Street. Soma, the one I inherited. He set the mug down too hard. It cracked. "I don't know what you're talking about." A beat. Then, "You're probably just misreading it. Or it's something automatic." I showed him the screen. Watched the flicker in his eyes before he looked away. "Is this a joke?" He shrugged. "Call your lawyer. It'll get sorted out." I did. Glenn Murdoch, my father's old estate attorney, answered after the 4th ring. He sounded tired. "Delaney, we need to talk. Now." I met him in his office on Market Street. The moment I stepped inside, he handed me a file folder. "I was going to call you yesterday, but I wanted to be sure," he said. "You didn't authorize a power of attorney switch, did you?" I flipped through the documents. All legal. All sealed, all listing me as granting authority over all 3 penthouses to a shell company named Rook and Vale Holdings LLC. No, I breathed. I didn't. Well, someone did. I drove straight back to the penthouse. Took the stairs, not the elevator. Something in my body was already buzzing, a low hum beneath the skin. Inside, I logged into my banking portal. Nothing. All account activity for the past 60 days was gone. Redacted. Someone had gone in and scrubbed me clean. Not just of assets, of history. I opened the safe. Empty. Only a single piece of paper left, centered like an accusation. A marriage is not built on secrets, unless one of those secrets is worth more than trust. I didn't write that. I didn't need to. I knew who did. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed Elias's face over and over. The moment he pretended not to know. But it was worse than pretending. It was practiced. No one makes a move that calculated without rehearsal. I sat on the edge of the bed, heart hammering, eyes dry. The marriage license sat in the drawer. Neat. Clean. Perfect. Beside it, a second envelope. One I hadn't seen before. Inside was a draft agreement, post-nuptial, typed in flawless legalese and signed but ready to be. Clause 5. All assets, including but not limited to properties acquired prior to union, shall be co-managed under Rook and Vale Holdings for tax security purposes. I wanted to vomit. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. No caller ID. A whisper on the other end. Clever girl, but you're already too late. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry either. When the betrayal's fresh, grief doesn't bleed. It tightens like a wire around your ribs and waits. By 6 a.m., I was in the storage unit my father left under a dummy name, Richard D. Grayson, a fake ID he'd used for decades when he didn't want the Wren name attached. The lock had been changed. I used bolt cutters. Inside boxes. Dozens. Labeled in his handwriting. I opened one at random. Ledgers. Receipts. Architectural maps. Then I found it. A dusty, wood-framed photo of us from years ago, me maybe 10, grinning with a gap-toothed smile, my father behind me, one hand on my shoulder. Something about the frame made me pause. The back panel was loose. Inside, not a photo duplicate, but a QR code, carved into a brass plate no larger than a SIM card. Who hides a digital key in a picture frame? I scanned it. The screen blinked. A hidden drive loaded. An entire encrypted folder titled DL03 if compromised. My pulse went sharp. I clicked. A series of documents appeared, old but clean, a breakdown of every Wren-owned holding, both declared and silent, but most shockingly, a string of blockchain transactions linked to 3 known shell corporations, Rook and Vale Holdings, Latchman Financial, Radnor Global Partners. The last name hit like a slap. Elias's family company. In the middle of the files, a voice recording. My father. If you're seeing this, Delaney, it means someone has triggered the kill switch. You've always been the only one I trusted to know the truth. They think the properties were for legacy. They were for leverage. Click. I couldn't breathe. A sound. I froze. A tap. Soft. Deliberate. Not a rat. Not pipes. I turned slowly. The storage unit door, closed behind me, had a shadow beneath it. A footstep. Then another. Then silence. I held my breath. The light above flickered. Always keep your exit clear, my father used to say. The moment you feel watched, you are. I grabbed the drive, shoved it in my jacket, and stepped back into the hallway. Empty. But my car's passenger door was slightly ajar, and I never leave it unlocked. Back home, I found Elias in the study. On the phone. He didn't see me. His voice was low but clear. No, she doesn't know yet. I'll get the documents by Friday. Pause. I told you she trusts me. Another pause. Then, if this leaks, we all go down. He hung up. I didn't move. He turned and saw me. Smiled casual. Hey, you okay? You look pale. I need to talk to you, I said. Sure, he nodded. Let me grab coffee. He walked toward the kitchen. I slipped out the front door. At Glenn Murdoch's office, I showed him the flash drive. He watched the video 3 times, face unreadable. I knew your father was careful, he murmured, but I didn't think he knew this much. Why didn't you tell me about Radnor Global? He looked at me then, weary. Because if I had, you wouldn't be here. You'd be underground. He pushed over paper. Surveillance photo. Grainy. Me. Entering the storage unit. Taken today. Someone's already watching you. By nightfall, I was back at the penthouse. I had to see it. Feel it. Penthouse 3B. My father's favorite. I stepped into the living room. It was cold. Too cold. The glass coffee table had a fine layer of dust, but a fresh boot print near the center. I moved slowly, opened the wall panel behind the bookshelf, my father's hidden server panel. Gone. Stripped clean, except for a single sticky note stuck to the glass. Don't follow the numbers. Follow the names. And underneath, 3 initials. RGP. Radnor. Global. Partners. My phone buzzed. Blocked number. I answered. Static. Then a whisper. You don't know what you're part of, Delaney. Walk away, or we'll finish what your father couldn't. I turned slowly to the window. Across the street, 3 floors up, in a neighboring building, one light was on. And someone was standing in the dark, watching. Still, my father didn't die in his sleep, and I think Elias knew. I drove with the headlights off. Back alleys, unlit intersections. I changed direction 3 times before pulling into a parking garage near Mission. Level 4. Reverse into a corner. Just like he taught me. If they're following you, give them nothing straight. The city was loud tonight, sirens in the distance, voices echoing in the garage. But I only heard my heartbeat. That, and the click of my heels against the concrete. I had the frame in my bag. The photo. The code. The only thing left that felt like it belonged to me. I took the freight elevator to Penthouse 3A, not 3B. 3A had always been the decoy. The layout mirrored, but the guts weren't wired the same. Inside, I didn't turn on the main lights. I used the flashlight on my phone. 1 sweep of the living room, clear. 2nd sweep, motion, sensor blinking red near the ceiling. I stepped over the threshold. The air felt different, heavier. I opened the back panel of the built-in bookshelf. Another safe, code-protected, biometric pad. But there in the corner was the faint imprint of something carved into the paint. Numbers. 1963, 0521. His birth year. My birthday. I punched it in. The light turned green. It opened. Inside wasn't money. It was a laptop. Old. Dusty. But humming with power. And underneath it a note. Some debts can't be paid in dollars. The laptop booted up. No password screen. Just a video feed. A room. Dimly lit. A man strapped to a chair. Another man pacing behind him. Shadowed, tall, gloved. My father. Only not as I remembered. He looked older. Hollow-eyed. Shoulders heavy. And he was talking. The rent accounts were never meant to fund this. The other man stepped into frame. Not Elias. Someone else. A scar ran down his cheek. Silver chain around his neck. He leaned down, said something into my father's ear. I couldn't hear it. No sound. Then, gunshot. The screen went black. I recoiled. The chair in the video, I recognized it. It was in the basement of Penthouse 3B. I stood so fast the chair toppled. The apartment around me felt like it shrunk, like walls pressing in. This wasn't just money. This was murder. And Elias knew. Maybe he wasn't the one pulling the trigger, but he sure as hell kept the lights on. I grabbed the laptop and ran. I didn't take the elevator. Down 6 flights by stairs. My lungs burned. My knee cracked halfway. I hit the garage. My car's driver's side window was shattered. A note on the dashboard. Stop digging. We buried him for a reason. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I drove. Back at Glenn's office, the power was out. Emergency lights only. The door was ajar. I stepped inside, slowly. Glenn. Nothing. I moved past the reception. His office door was open. Papers everywhere. The smell of burnt electronics. And on the screen behind his desk, someone had left a message typed in bold, white font. You're next, Delaney. I turned. A figure in the hallway. Female. Sharp blazer. No smile. Who are you? I snapped. She didn't answer. Just tossed a manila folder at my feet. Read it. You'll understand. She vanished. The file was full of surveillance stills. Me. Elias. Glenn. Even my father. Photos from over a decade ago. One had a post-it. Property transfer chain /3B/ buried asset clause. Another was a legal draft. Amendment to marriage agreement. Pending signature. Elias had filed for full control of the properties 3 days before our wedding. Filed. Not submitted. Meaning, he was waiting for me to slip. I stared at the final page. A notarized document. My signature at the bottom. Dated yesterday. I never signed it, but someone did. And they did it well enough to fool the bank, the title office, and maybe even a court. I dropped the file. Phone buzzed. Blocked number again. But this time it was a voice. I warned you, Delaney. I stepped to the window. Below, a car idled at the curb. Engine on. Lights off. He didn't marry me for love. He married me for access. The car outside didn't move. Engine idle. Headlights dark. I closed the blinds in Glenn's office. Heart thudding like fists on glass. Someone had been inside. Left a message. And now someone was outside, watching if I'd run. I didn't. Instead, I copied every file from the manila folder, took the whole drive, walked straight out the back exit, through the alley head down. No one followed, but I didn't stop looking over my shoulder. Sometimes, paranoia is self-preservation in disguise. I went to someone I hadn't spoken to in 6 years. Nolan March, former SEC analyst, disbarred. My father once called him the only snake who knew where the other snakes slept. His apartment was in Oakland. No buzzer. No name on the mailbox. Just 2 numbers carved into a steel plate. 93. I knocked once. Then twice. The door opened. He looked older. Leaner. But his eyes sharpened when he saw me. Delaney Wren, he said like a curse. You've got a storm behind you. I stepped in. You still read blockchain contracts. He raised an eyebrow. I read the language of thieves. I pulled out the drive, played the silent clip of my father again. He watched it all. No reaction. Then said, Your husband didn't just marry you for access. He married you to erase something. We went over the files. 4 of the property transfers linked to Shell LLCs registered in Delaware. He pointed to the signature trails. See that, he said, tapping the screen. That's synthetic. Digitally forged, but built to match pen pressure from known samples. You didn't just get screwed. You got precision screwed. I swallowed. What are they hiding? Nolan leaned back. Worse than hiding. They're cleaning. Your father found something he shouldn't have. Asset laundering. Possibly routing through municipal development funds. That penthouse wasn't just real estate. It was a data vault. I needed proof. Real, physical proof. So I went back to 3B. Alone. This time, I brought gloves and a burner phone. The building was still quiet. Concierge gone for the night. Elevator creaked all the way up. My heels echoed like gunshots on marble. Inside the penthouse, I moved fast. Back to the basement. The chair. The server wall. The old security cabinet. And behind the breaker box, hidden under insulation, I found it. A Ziploc bag. Inside, a key card. Metallic. Embossed with the initials AMC. Not a hotel. Atlantic Monetary Consortium. Private banking group. Ultra high net worth clientele. Notoriously opaque. I pocketed it. Turned. The closet door creaked open. I hadn't touched it. A gust of cold air spilled out. And there, on the inside panel, was a bloodied scarf, buried beneath coats, and a lipstick smear on the fabric. Red. Sharp. Still fresh. I stepped back, bumped into the doorframe. Then I heard the lock, the sound of the front door. I froze. Someone was inside. I didn't run. I moved silently, fast behind the basement door. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Female heels. Not flats. Not boots. Then laughter. Low. Controlled. Familiar. Elias's assistant. Vivian. I listened. She picked up the scarf. Well, she muttered. That was messy. She didn't see me. She left. I waited 3 minutes before following. Out the back. Down the alley. Caught the tail end of her coat as she entered a car across the street. Black Mercedes. Government plates. Not private security. Not Radnor Global. Federal. I called Nolan. She's cleaning the crime scene, I said. Not just cleaning, he replied. She's connecting the trail back to you. My breath caught. They're building a case, I whispered. No, they're burning one, he said, and you're the one left holding the match. I didn't sleep that night. I scanned the AMC keycard. Encrypted, but the serial number triggered something deep in my father's records. A folder I hadn't seen before. Member 117. Arbitration black box. Inside, meeting transcripts. Coded bank transfers. A list of names. Every one of them tied to someone powerful. Judges. City council. Investors. And at the very bottom, handwritten in my father's sharp cursive, if found dead, start with Radner, but the money ends at AMC. I sat back, heart crashing. He knew he'd be killed. He left the fuse burning, and now it was in my hands. My phone buzzed. This time no call, just a photo. Me, taken through the window. Caption, Tick-tock, heiress. Chapter 5, The Ballroom Trap. The next morning, my inbox had a new email. Subject, Forgotten Files MC Internal. No sender, no signature, just one line. You have until midnight. Attached, a PDF of banking transactions, cryptic entries with routing numbers I couldn't trace, and one flagged memo. Divest via Wren Properties. Initiate liquidation if dead. If dead, they planned for his death like a business contingency. Nolan confirmed what I feared. They were preparing to bury him before he signed the trusts over. This wasn't theft. It was a merger. I stood jaw clenched. Then I burned their merger to the ground. I had one shot. I needed witnesses. Attention. A place they couldn't silence me. That's when it clicked. The Wren Foundation Gala. Tonight. Black tie. Hundreds of guests. Press. Judges. Politicians. And Elias on stage. It was the perfect stage. We prepped fast. Nolan scrubbed the files, buried the most explosive ones behind a QR code hidden inside the gala slideshow. All I had to do was trigger it live. The files would auto-upload, send out to media, IRS, SEC, everywhere. Once it's up, Nolan said, you vanish. Don't wait for the fallout. Why? Because the people you're about to expose don't sue, they erase. I walked into the ballroom in a midnight blue gown and fire in my chest. Eyes followed me. Whispers trailed. Delaney Wren's here? Didn't she disappear? No Elias? Let them talk. The chandeliers cast fractured light across mirrored floors. Music hummed. Laughter rose, practiced and political. I kept my distance from the podium, but not from her. Vivian, in red again, smiling, teeth too white. You look refreshed, she said. Red's your color, I replied. Matches the blood on your scarf. Her smile didn't falter. You always were the dramatic one. I stepped closer, and you always underestimated the quiet ones. The program started. Elias walked out under a standing ovation. Hair perfect. Smile rehearsed. Tonight, he began, we honor legacy. The name Wren means something because... I triggered the QR. The screen behind him flickered. He paused, confused. Images appeared. Documents. Wire transfers. Photo stills. My father's hidden recordings. And then, the video. No sound. Just visual. My father in the chair. AMC watermark in the corner. A man stepping forward. The gun. The room gasped. Elias froze. Vivian dropped her champagne. Security rushed the stage. Guests screamed. Some phones came up. Others ran. But I was already gone. Out the kitchen, down the loading dock. Nolan was waiting in a beat-up van. Did it work? I asked. He nodded once. Everywhere. They'll scramble, but they can't bury all of it. We sped off. 3 hours later, I sat in a motel 2 states away. Phone off. Burner only. Until it rang. Blocked again. I let it ring, then answered. You think this ends at AMC? The voice said. I think it starts there. Pause. Good. Then you're ready for what's next. I stared at the TV in the room. Breaking news. Federal investigation into Wren family finances. Arrest warrants issued. Elias Wren missing. But that wasn't what chilled me. The camera panned to the crowd outside the Wren estate, and standing in the back was my mother, smiling, and beside her Vivian, holding hands. I never thought freedom would feel like static. The motel room was quiet, but my hands shook as I dialed Nolan's burner. No sleep, I whispered. They're on the move. His voice was low. Good, because I traced the AMC feeds. They're collapsing. IRS, DOJ, SEC simultaneous audit. Radnor Global Partners just got subpoenaed. I exhaled slow. Not relief. Just another breath, bought with risk. The street outside was dark, empty except for the humming street lamp, the kind that flickers once, twice, then stays. It felt like a warning. I stood by the window. My phone pinged. Another picture. This time, an old building in Oakland. Graffiti on the brick. A red X sprayed across the door. Caption, where it all started. Though my father built his empire in skyscrapers, that warehouse was his first data vault. The one place no one knew held the original servers. I grabbed my keys. The drive was short, but felt like crossing into a war zone. Oakland at night has a hollow echo, distant horns, the thrum of tires on cracked pavement, the occasional siren like a heartbeat too close. I parked, gun tucked in my coat, the one Nolan insisted I carry. A warrior prepares for what they dread, I muttered under breath, a phrase I'd heard once long ago and kept for nights like this. The warehouse door was ajar. Breach. I slipped inside. Concrete floor. High ceilings. Dust motes dancing through moonlight, slicing through broken windows. At the far end, a server rack blinking red. Someone had been here. Footprints led deeper. I followed, echoing footsteps, my breath quick. Then a voice, soft, too familiar. Delaney. I froze. Elias. He stood in the center of the ruins, coat open, expression unreadable. You shouldn't be here. No, I said, you shouldn't have lied. He stepped forward, hands raised slow. People change, he said. I had to protect you. And his work. His voice cracked, not with guilt, with calculation. You think I was erasing evidence? I was shielding the truth until we could control the fallout. Control. Always control. His eyes flickered with something I couldn't place. Fear? Regret? Or something darker? I didn't trust it. I backed up. That isn't protection, I said. It's concealment. He shook his head. You don't understand the magnitude of what he found. If the world sees it raw, economies collapse, governments fall. Innocent people lose everything. I stared at him. Since when do you decide who's innocent? He didn't answer. Instead, footsteps. Then her voice. Vivian. From the shadows. Well, isn't this cozy? She stepped forward, heels echoing on concrete. Red lips, red heels like always. And here I thought you'd run straight into the arms of federal cuffs. I scanned her face. Cold. Too cold. You were the one cleaning the crime scene, I said. Not protecting anyone. She smiled like a blade. You built your life on secrecy. Your father knew that. Elias knew that. I just made sure the blood didn't spill before the auction. Auction. The penthouses. My inheritance wasn't just property. It was leverage to manipulate markets, influence votes, launder assets. They weren't hiding money. They were hiding power. A siren wailed in the distance. Closer now. DA, someone shouted. The warehouse lights flipped on. Harsh. Blinding. Agents poured in. Guns raised. Freeze! Federal agents. I put my hands up. Elias too. Vivian stood still. A dance of red and blue strobes. One agent approached, eyes narrowed. Elias Radner, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, obstruction. He didn't resist, but Vivian did. She backed toward the wall. You can't do this, she snarled. You'll unleash chaos. A second agent cuffed her too. I watched as she spat the words like poison, but her eyes gleamed with something else. Regret, maybe. Or triumph, because she knew more than she said. Outside, media vans lined the street. Reporters shouted questions. Lights flashed. Cameras rolled. My face was plastered across screens, but I felt numb. Not broken, just tired. Coordination teams came forward. Questions, statements. But through it all, something inside me shifted. Not like a heartbeat, more like a pulse returning. Hope. Nolan appeared, stepping through the throng. You did it, he said. Legally. Publicly. They can't bury this. I nodded, but didn't smile. Nothing about this was clean, I said. But it's over. He looked at me, eyes reflective. You know what they say. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants alike. I winced, but the words fit, not because of violence, but because truth demands sacrifice. Later, I stood alone on a rooftop overlooking the city. Skyscrapers lit like veins. San Francisco breathed below. Wind brushed my face. Cool, honest. I thought of my father, of his warning, of his last encoded message. If found dead, start with Radner, but the money ends at AMC. He was right, but the truth ended more than money. It ended a dynasty's corruption and birthed a new one not built on shadows. Agents approached, offering me protective custody. I declined. I'm not done, I said. Not until this city stops being afraid of its own reflection. My voice echoed in the night. Someone once said, courage is not the absence of fear, but triumph over it. Tonight I felt that triumph, not as vengeance, but as justice. I turned and walked down the fire escape. Behind me, the skyline shimmered. And one final thought hit me, sharp and true. Truth isn't something you uncover. It's something you force into the light. And in that moment, I stepped into the dawn. Ready, unafraid, free.